everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Campaign Highs and Lows, Spikes Asia edition. We're here at the end of day one. The campaign editorial team, I'm Robert Sawatsky, Olivia Parker, along with Fayez Samadi and Matthew Miller. So we're part of the campaign team that's here, and just wanted to go through some of the highlights of the day.
Yeah.
So, Olivia, take it away.
One of the early kind of trends that we saw was kind of two different takes on how to reach real people in ads. And Jayanta Jenkins from Twitter had one of the first presentations, and he gave this really engaging talk, which was all about how brands chase cool too much of the time, and really they need to just, keep it real. So he sort of gave a presentation in which he dropped in all of the people who inspire him to be cool. So we had Michael Jackson, we had Bob Marley, we had James Brown, Richard Pryor, all people who he said were kind of cool because they don't focus on being cool, they just focus on doing their own thing and doing things that they enjoy, and he said that's how they produce the best work. And
that's not chasing cool if you're like trying to be inspired by Michael Jackson.
No, but I think his idea was like, look, this is how it comes naturally. He was like, these people didn't try hard, they're just creative flames who didn't have to go, oh, hang on, let me go and work out how to be cool. It just happened. Like James Brown, you can't really argue with anything. So I think his presentation was great in terms of really nice to have clean slides, like just slides, a couple of words, good video, good. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was cool. And then there was a second presentation a bit later by Danny Searle of BBDO, and his take on it was that brands need to reach people by acts rather than ads.
Yeah.
So he referenced the State Street Fearless Girl as a kind of a famous act that really got to people because people, he said, often don't like to say that they love ads, but they will get involved in an ad because it doesn't seem like it's an ad. So when he went to see Fearless Girl, he said there were police cordons around it, and there were crowds and crowds of people there because people were just seeing it as a cool thing in its own right rather than an advert. So
I think that's the dream, isn't it? Finding something that's cool in its own right, and then the messaging comes along with it, right? If you're trying to sell it even a little bit, people are wise, right? They're going to get to it really quickly. It kind of ties in a little bit with the panel I went to, which was put on by creative director Dentsu Inc., Noriaki Hanoi, and he made lots of really good points, but tied to your one, which I thought was really interesting, was about the idea that you have to let people discover something as part of the ad or the campaigns, because let's face it, in this like Instagramming, Facebooking, selfieing world, people love to feel like they're in the know first, and like that, I mean, he didn't quite say it that way, he was like more articulate and nice about it, but essentially what you're getting at is, you'd love to be able to tell your mates, oh, I know something you don't know, or I have found something, and he's like, if you can make that discovery part of your campaign, in terms of sharing, in terms of engagement, it's going to go way higher. And he talked about a campaign they did for a cup noodle brand, where they had like a small activation around a restaurant in a subway station in Tokyo that was closing, that did like hot noodles. And he like did an activation to do with a kettle and pouring it and filling it out, but he made it a little harder to find. It wasn't just on the track that everybody would walk past, so it was within sort of peripheral. And then he found that people who found it walked over to it and thought, hey, look at this thing I found. Aren't I great? I found it. Take a picture, put it online, and that discovery is what makes people be more interested in sharing. So that was really cool too. I think it links into the kind of getting this part of what's going on with the culture right now.
Disguising an ad.
Exactly, yeah, totally hiding it. Yeah.
It's that search for originality, which is always, what I find is it's always easy to cite examples of in hindsight, and if you're there, presented with a client and a brief, and to come up with something that's original, it's just that ongoing struggle, and you hit it a few times, and when you do, everyone knows it's but
so Noriaki also put up some of his own manga that he draws in his spare time, and it looked amazing. I kind of wanted to read it, but he was using it as part of the presentation. So we have really good videos to like original art manga. It's been great today.
Highlight for me, I got to go onto the Masters of Creativity stage today. I brought with me Chris Chong, who is a founder of Sumo Story, and he's an entrepreneur. This is about his fourth venture. He hit a home run with his first company that he sold to Groupon, and then had a couple of misses. This latest venture, though, he wants to automate parts of PR. So just some of the job around press release creation and basically using an algorithm to match pitches to journalists. So as a result of that, he's ruffled a few feathers in the PR industry, and like before going in, he was a bit apprehensive, thinking there may be some negativity from PR agencies in the crowd, but it turned out to be quite the opposite. The PR agencies that we asked questions to afterwards were more like, we're interested. We want to partner with you. We want to buy you. So I don't think that there's as much resistance to automation. I think everyone knows it's here and everyone knows it's coming, and it's not quite as scary as everyone thinks. This morning in the innovation stage, I also saw there was a segment called AI is listening, and they're what they started with was, don't worry, AI is not going to eat you, but it was all about AI and music, and it was really interesting, just in terms of what robots are doing in terms of one, being able to dissect music and basically figure out about if they have the data broken down on what exactly and what are the notes and melodies that create a sad song, they can build that on their own. And so we listened to different versions of music that was created by AIs, but it's more just how they can narrow in on what exactly twinges emotions in people, and that brands are salivating over that because they want that music that can be created on the spot for you, depending on your mood, from whatever data that they get. So that was really interesting.
But it seems to be that whole piece, doesn't it, where I think people are talking about automation more as a time saver than a job killer. It's in all aspects, whether it's PR, media, or creative now, as we're talking about, it's a bit actually, what I can do is deploy this AI or machine learning or automation to do this functional stuff, and then leave me and my brain space and my team's brain space a lot more freedom to do other things that is way cooler.
I wandered
sounds
into
good to me, yeah.
I wandered into a talk that was by Baker Lambert from TBWA, their digital data director, I believe, and he touched on AI sort of toward the end. And again, it was addressing creatives and saying AI is not a threat to you; it's actually an enabler. He was describing an ML AI system that they have that basically just works as a partner in the brainstorming process with creatives. So it has intelligence about what kind of media formats work for particular audiences, and it'll throw out suggestions what if a little bit of this or this, VR, for example, and it's not actually taking over creativity, but it's helping the creatives say, oh yeah, that sounds like an interesting path to pursue.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty good. The rest of that talk I thought was actually even better because it was about data. And data is not something that you usually think about at a creative conference. We'll hear that at our media conferences. And there's the idea that big data is something that's only on supercomputers and handled by AIs, but Baker's point really was that data is not that complicated. It can be very simple, and he gave two examples. So one was addressing a problem that creatives often have of trying to convince the client not to do something that they know is wrong. And the example that he had there was of a campaign that was targeting 16-year-olds, but the client was convinced that the music in the ad should be by an artist that went out of favor in the late 90s.
Okay.
Melissa Etheridge. I'm probably the only one here who knows her name. Yeah. So they spent 2 minutes on Spotify and they showed the client, this is who listens to Melissa Etheridge. And that was not 16-year-olds, and that was the end of the conversation. So that's a use of data. That's very simple and can help creatives, get their way in essence. The other example that he gave, I forgot. Totally blanked on it right now.
Well, I'm going to jump in at that point on the music, because I also jumped into the Makers Lab. And anyways, there was a German company, a music company, and they were giving examples about matching music with brands as well. They also had a situation where basically the client told them, okay, first thing, here's the film. It was a German e-commerce retailer. Okay. They're like, what we don't want is any famous songs, and we don't want cover tunes by someone. It's they went through this whole process, and as they went through it, they're like, listen to your clients, but persevere if you know your stuff. And in the end, they ended up with time after time a cover of Cyndi Lauper. It was a choral orchestration that basically they didn't want, but when it went together with the whole thing, it fit. So, anyways, it's
Cyndi Lauper, who is she? Yeah. Maybe something
even older than Melissa Etheridge. My God. The other example was trying to consider things that you wouldn't necessarily think of as data. So this example was a home improvement retailer. And they looked at 600 hours worth of video of people in the DIY aisle, and the thing that jumped out for them was that something like 45+% of DIYers were bald men, which is something that they wouldn't have found any other way. Yeah. But so using this sort of unconventional sorts of data, they came up with something that went into the creative of the advertising campaign and actually worked.
Well, the music is pumping and the bar is close by, so I think this is like right ahead of
The beers are right here.
Tangrams. Oh, Bias is on.
All right.
He's on the job. Oh, nice.
Excellent.
Thank you. I'll take
Thanks
one.
very much.
So actually, it's like happy hour right ahead of the Tangrams Effectiveness Awards. We're going to be watching it tonight. So, anyways, cheers.
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 More spikes tomorrow.
We'll have the Tangrams results live in just